Alexander Hamilton is big box office these days, thanks to Lin-Manuel Miranda's mega-hit musical Hamilton. Still, while we all have a vivid picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware, or Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence, Alexander Hamilton is still probably best known for being shot to death in a duel with Aaron Burr. Of course, you do see his mug every time you take out a $10 bill, but the truth is his fingerprints are all over the other bills in your wallet too. Not to mention that jar of coins in the back of your closet. Relax the jackalope, that's a figure of speech. George Washington's first cabinet included Avenger-level heavyweights like Jefferson, Henry Knox, and Edmund Randolph. Yet as Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton was easily its most influential member. In fact, much like the First Lord of the Treasury serves as Britain's Prime Minister, Hamilton came to think of himself as America's Prime Minister, and even referred to the new government as my administration. But how did he actually contribute to the founding of our nation? Stay tuned, we've got the 4 pillars of Hamilton's financial plan on this episode of Bigfoot's Great American History Show. By the time Hamilton was appointed to head the Treasury Department on September 11, 1789, the United States had already accumulated nearly $80 million of debt. It had, after all, just built an army from scratch and fought an expensive 8-year grassroots war against Britain. Now, about 12 million of that was owed to foreign governments and bankers, and everyone agreed that that debt had to be paid in full. The question then was what to do about the debt owed to Americans, which had been acquired over the course of the war by the 13 states, the Second Continental Congress, and its successor, the Congress of the Confederation. This included a disjointed collection of notes, bonds, and loan certificates. In other words, a bunch of different governmental bodies had borrowed money a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways. By 1790, the value of these wartime securities had depreciated significantly. In order to restore confidence in the financial stability of the United States, Hamilton proposed for the central government to pay back the full original value of the bonds and loan certificates with interest. To raise the money to do so, it would sell new bonds, now backed by a government with a record of honoring its financial commitments. Under Hamilton's plan, the cost of making regular interest payments to these new bondholders would be funded by placing taxes on imported goods, or tariffs, as well as on goods produced in the United States, or excise taxes. The guaranteed bonds would thus serve as an attractive investment option for wealthy Americans at a time when the only other real option was to buy land. In North America, land speculation remained a risky proposition. Case in point, founding father Robert Morris, a former delegate to the Continental Congress, would later be thrown in debtor's prison after failing as a land speculator. Above all, Hamilton wanted a strong central government, like the one modeled in Britain. It was no coincidence then that he proposed for the federal government to take on the debt of the individual states. Remember, the United States of America had only existed since 1776. Most Americans in 1790 still identified more closely with their home states than with any idea of a central government. By eliminating the states' debt, Hamilton reasoned, the states would have no cause to raise taxes, and the people in time would come to see the federal government as the primary political authority in their lives. Moreover, Hamilton's bonds would encourage the people's investment in the central government. Literally. It's important perhaps to note that Hamilton himself had no strong allegiance to any particular state, having been born and raised in the Caribbean. Of all his proposals, this federal assumption of state debt would prove to be the most controversial. As it was, Thomas Jefferson's Virginia had already paid back most of its debt. Thus, under Hamilton's plan, Virginians would effectively be paying taxes to retire the debt of other states. In the end, Hamilton forged a compromise to get his way. At a private dinner arranged by Jefferson, opponents of the plan, largely from the South, agreed to support it if Hamilton's Federalists agreed to build the new U.S. Capitol in the South, on the Potomac, between Maryland and Virginia. Okay. Yeah, I'm big and hairy. No, I get it. Hamilton's second proposal was for a national bank with a 20-year charter, called the Bank of the United States, modeled after the Bank of England established in 1694. The bank would raise $10 million in capital, 1/5 of which would come from the government itself, and 4/5 of which would come from private investors. It would, as the name suggests, hold and manage funds for the United States, and it would be the only bank with a charter to do so. Perhaps most importantly, it would be authorized to issue notes as loans to private individuals. Sound familiar? Take a look at any bill in your wallet. Much like Federal Reserve notes today, Bank of the United States notes would serve as dependable paper money for the duration of its 20-year charter. The bank bill, too, faced strong opposition. The South especially remained a farm-based society, and a national bank appeared to serve primarily the interests of northern aristocrats. Moreover, the United States had just fought a protracted war to rid itself of England's corrupting influence. And here Hamilton was attempting to recreate England's financial system. On top of all of that, Jefferson and others claimed that the new Constitution, ratified in 1788, did not grant Congress the authority to charter a bank at all. Despite these objections, Congress passed the Bank Bill, and after Hamilton convinced President George Washington that Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gave Congress the right to make all laws necessary and proper to fulfill its purpose, the president gave his approval. Called the Bank of the United... hairball. Hamilton's least controversial proposal was for a national mint. The United States was then rife with all manner of foreign coins, yet had none of its own. The Coinage Act of 1792 established a US dollar equivalent to the Spanish silver dollar and divided it into a clean 100 cents. Incidentally, in addition to cents and dimes, which we are familiar with today, the act also established 1,000 mils to the dollar and $10 to the eagle, in case you ever find yourself on Jeopardy. Again, the United States was an agricultural society at the time. In Hamilton's eyes, and George Washington's, if it continued to rely on foreign powers for manufactured items, and especially those for waging war, it would never truly be an independent nation on an equal footing with its peers. Moreover, since it was a farming society, it had a surplus of farm goods to sell. Thus, not only would the development of American manufacturing ease the nation's reliance on foreign manufacturers, but the American manufacturers themselves would serve as buyers for the surplus farm goods, and thus ease America's reliance on foreign buyers as well. In a report to Congress on manufacturing, Hamilton proposed protective tariffs for growing American industries, bounties to promote new manufacturing, and prizes to encourage invention. For better or worse, Hamilton succeeded in establishing the financial force of the new central government. By the mid-1790s, the individual states had raised only $500,000 in tax revenue, while the federal government had raised $6 million. To be sure, future presidents Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were distraught by the realization of a central government with the financial flexibility to do God only knew what. But hey, part of what God only knew turned out to be buying French Louisiana under Jefferson and waging the War of 1812 under Madison. So, of course, today we have a debt of $32 trillion, a central bank that sets monetary policy, and have become the military-industrial power that Hamilton envisioned. But was it all for better or worse? Or a little of both? Let us know your thoughts on Hamilton's legacy in the comments below. Until next time, this is Bigfoot saying so long and save me a seat at your next campfire.